At this time, we would like to begin this morning's funeral service for the late Reverend George A. Shibata, beginning with the kansho, ringing of the temple bell, the procession of the ministers into the hondo, chanting before the altar by the ministers, and the presentation of the Ingo posthumous honorary title.
proclamation of the posthumous honorary title. In recognition of the great contributions made by the late Reverend George A. Shibata, the Nishi Honganji in Kyoto, Japan, confers the following posthumous honorary title. Posthumous honorary title, Jo-Toku-in, which means quiet virtue. On orders from the Nishi Honganji, I have respectfully presented the Ingo, March 7, 2026. Reverend Marvin Haran. 生前の活動により、この度、京都西本願寺より印号を下付されました。俗名、柴田ジョージ殿、印号、上徳院、浄土真宗本願寺派本願寺、右印号名を受け、謹んで伝達いたします。2026年3月7日、開教師原田マーティン。
At this time, we will now have the Godaiko incense offering on behalf of Monshu Kojun Otani by Reverend Yukiko Motoyoshi. This morning, it is with deepest gratitude and appreciation that we gather to remember and honor one of our Dharma teachers and colleagues, Reverend George A. Shibata, who returned to the Pure Land on January 28th, 2026 at the age of 87. To Mrs. Yasuko Shibata, who I know is taking part in this service this morning from Japan, from Toyama, and to all of the family, relatives, and to all of Sensei's friends who have gathered here at the Buddhist Church of Stockton and on YouTube, I extend to you my sincere condolences on what I know is a tremendous loss for you and for our BCA Kyodan. Mrs. Shibata, この度先生のご往生に際しまして、もう本当長年お世話になりました。心よりお悔やみを申し上げます。 I know that I speak on behalf of Sensei's many colleagues and friends and for all of the members of the BCA that we will be forever grateful to Sensei for his life of sharing the Buddha Dharma and the Onenbutsu teaching here in America. Please know to the family that you have the gratitude and appreciation of a very grateful Kyodan. Thank you very much. Reverend George Eishin Shibata was born on April 13th, 1938 in Fukuoka, Japan, and was the first of Reverend Tesshin and Mrs. Haruko Shibata's 10 children. Reverend Shibata and his mother arrived in the United States on June 12, 1939, to join their father and husband, Reverend Tesshin Shibata, who moved to the States in 1937 as his father was assigned to the White River Buddhist Temple. They resided in Auburn, Washington until the family's internment during World War II. Following the Shibata family's release from camp, Reverend Tesshin Shibata was assigned as the first resident minister of the Idaho, Oregon Buddhist Temple in Ontario, Oregon, in September of 1945. There, many temple members recall Reverend and Mrs. Shibata and their children residing together in a one-bedroom home. Reverend Shibata went on to attend the University of Washington in Seattle from 1957 to 1963, and rumor has it that he was on the wrestling team in college. Reverend Shibata returned to Japan to continue his education and received his bachelor's degree from Ryukoku University in 1966 and a master's degree in 1969. He furthered his education in Japan by attending Honganji's Dendoin and later received the scholastic titles of Honganji Jokyo in 1969 and Honganji Fukyoshi, also in 1969, and the title of Hokyo in 1973. On October 27th, 1973, Reverend Shibata married the love of his life, Yasuko Kawasaki, in Kyoto, Japan, and returned to the United States to serve the BCA as a minister. Sensei's ministerial career in the BCA included serving at the Gardena Buddhist Church from 1970 to 1973, serving as assistant director of the BCA's then Bureau of Buddhist Education in 1974, and acting director of the BCA's Department of Buddhist Education from 1987 to 1989. Reverend Shibata also served as chairperson of the BCA's Ministers Association from 1992 to 1993. While Reverend Shibata spent the majority of his ministerial career in the Central California District, serving at the Reedley Buddhist Church as their resident minister for 37 years until his retirement, and while in the Central California District, Reverend Shibata also served as the supervising minister at the Buddhist Church of Parlier and the Dainuba Buddhist Church. Upon his retirement, Reverend Shibata and his wife Yasuko relocated to Stockton, California to be closer to his family. And there they enjoyed attending family gatherings such as Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. Sensei continued his hobbies of baseball cards, stamp, and coin collecting, while also enjoying many, many rounds of golf with his golfing buddies and the occasional trip to local casinos with his wife Yasuko and friends, and of course with his ever-present cigar in his mouth, I'm sure. In August of 2020, Sensei and Okusan returned to Toyama, Japan to be reunited with Yasuko's family. After a short illness with pneumonia, Sensei peacefully passed away on January 28, 2026 in Toyama, Japan. Sensei is survived by his wife, Yasuko, 52 years, and his siblings, Alice, Mary, Tad, Judy, Kay, Mike, and Moss, and his many nieces and nephews. Sensei will be reminded for his quiet and gentle nature and will be deeply missed by all who had the honor of knowing him, for sure. We'll now continue with the program with the chanting of the Shoshinge. And during the Shoshinge, I wish to invite the family, the relatives, and honorary pallbearers to please come forward to Oshoko, and the remainder of the congregation will offer Oshoko at the conclusion of the service.
弥陀如来入道場三下楽無常釈迦如来入道場三下楽無常十方如来入道場三下楽奇妙無量寿如来南無不可思議故法蔵菩薩意にじ在世自在応部所統計諸仏浄土院国土人伝自然幕建立無常種諸願超発形右大偶然五個私有死生寿十世名所聞寺法不法無量無変化無下無体公園の少女歓喜知恵子不断難事無所故超日学校小実説一切群上無故障本願名号少女語死死信行がに上等学初代涅槃必死滅度願成就如来所以故修世唯説弥陀本願会五辱悪事群上会お信如来如実言の発一年喜愛し不断煩悩特年半文上逆法再へ入如修入会一味世修信仰上昇語意の水波無明暗頓内心臓死有無上不真実信心天意如に古墳無運無資源妙無安逆視見行大狂気即応超雑語悪臭一切善悪凡部に門心如来偶是願仏語古代小下者銭妙分だりけ弥陀仏本願念仏邪見狂慢楽修上信行十字に難 中至難無可視インド祭天使論下中華自治域史こそ現代諸国聖書意妙如来本税よき釈迦如来をがせ一種五妙難天竺龍樹大自主とせ質の財派有無権先絶大乗無情報召喚議事小安楽賢治難行六六信行異行四道楽億年弥陀仏本願次年即時入筆上唯の上昇如来語大法非偶税よ天神菩薩像根月一妙無下公如来永主たら見真実光線の頂戴聖願こういう本願力へこ移動群上昇一心気抜く独大崩壊律学入大へ収集特使連下造世界即所信用法生じ有本の人間人図入所寺四寺を下本師論乱両天使上皇ら長菩薩来三蔵ルシ十上教凡上宣教気楽法天神菩薩論中下報道因果見世願大言ねこゆたり少女死唯信心惑前凡流信心発承知承自即涅槃必死無量光明道小修上回復系同釈結晶道難所唯妙浄土活入万全自力変願宗永満特語感染症三不三死慶音言増末法滅道非一生増悪地偶税死安養害称名化全道独名部所意公愛上三陽逆悪公明明語見人年会入本願大地会行者生じ今後し教期一年総合用意大と逆三人即法
所司上楽原始公開一大教返帰安養観日祭先祖終身反戦実後見二度小弁流極重悪に唯小物が薬剤摂取中煩悩小月不見大無見上昇が本資源空妙仏教連民全幕本部に死宗教書後編集戦弱本願具悪性現来生じ臨伝下ケチ義上位少子即入弱上無意楽非知信じの入仏教大事修士と上祭無変極辱悪同族自主愚道し有意化ししこそせたまんだぶなまんだぶなまんだぶなまんだぶなまんだぶなまんだぶがんにしくどく平等性祭道本大師往生安ナマンダブスナマンダブスナマンダブスナマンダブスナマンダブスナマンダブスナマンダブス。
Next, we will have the singing of the Gatha Ondoksan 2. During the Gatha, the family and relatives may remain seated, but if I may ask the remainder of the congregation to please rise. We'll now have incense offering by the following representatives. Representing Sensei's Friends, Dr. Hunter Arakawa. Representing the Gardena Buddhist Church, Mrs. Kathy Horry. For the Reedley Buddhist Church, Mrs. Vicky Nishida. For the Buddhist Church of Parlier, Mr. Donald Ikemiya. For the Ishijukai Retired Ministers and Spouses Group, Reverend Kodo Umezu. For the BCA Federation of Dharma School Teachers League, Mrs. Darlene Bagshaw. The Federation of Buddhist Women's Association, Mrs. Jeannie Toshima. For the BCA Ministers Association, Reverend Henry Adams. Representing the Buddhist Church of Stockton, Mrs. Candice Hayashi. And representing the Buddhist Churches of America, Mr. Bradley Menda. Thank you very much. We'll now have some messages of condolence, choijo, from the Honganji, presented by Reverend Henry Adams.
頂位上、今般、柴田ジョージ栄信様、ご逝去いたされ、忠心哀悼に絶えず、ご一門のご終端、いかばかりかと拝察申し上げます。ご生前には、ご崩儀装束の上より、主門のご自発展め、多大のご尽力をいただきましたことに、厚く感謝申し上げ、重ねて敬重の誠を表します。なお、ご遺族の皆様には、この度のご往生を起縁とされ、認証無常の断りを深く味わい、いよいよ念仏相続、麗しく、任外首相の所詮を全うせられますよう、切に念願する次第であります。令和8年、2026年1月23日、浄土真宗本願寺派総長園木義公ご遺族の皆様へ。Dear Mrs. Yasuko Shibata and family, on behalf of the Jodo Shinshu Honganji-ha organization, I would like to extend to you our deepest condolences on the passing of Reverend George Eishin Shibata. His dedication and contributions to the Temple and the Buddhist Churches of America shall continue to serve as an inspiration to us all. May the Nembutsu teaching offer you solace and strength in this time of need. Ingato, Reverend Sonoki Giko, Governor General, Jodo Shinshu Honganji-ha. Namman Dabutsu, Namman.
We'll now have some words of remembrances, first by Reverend Brian Nagata, followed by Mrs. Vicky Nishida.
安子さん、この度心からお悔やみ申し上げます。本当に寂しくなりましたね。My family's association with Reverend George goes back to his days as a ministerial student in Kyoto when he was studying with my uncle and aunt, Reverend Jim Yanagihara, and Aunt Patsy. About 10 or 15 years ago, I was in Kyoto having dinner with friends at a small kushikatsu restaurant in Gion called Hana Gion. Sensei, 覚えてる? And Gion, as you may know, is famous for being where the geishas were. And the okami-san, the owner of the restaurant, was an elderly woman who was formerly a geisha herself. And there was actually a picture on the wall of the restaurant of okami-san, and she was quite beautiful in her days as a geisha. And it was explained to me that back in the day, somehow BCA minister students in the 70s would frequent this restaurant and enjoy okami-san's kindness. And when okami-san heard that I was from the BCA, she asked me, "How is George Shibata sensei doing?" Even after 40 years, okami-san specifically asked me how Reverend George was doing. She didn't ask me about my uncle or any of the other ministers. Obviously, seemingly innocent George sensei must have made quite an impression on okami-san. For even after 40 years, she remembered him. But probably my family's most important karmic connection to Reverend George's life was that my cousin, Becky, Reverend Blake's auntie, actually helped select Yasuko-san for Reverend George. At the time when Reverend George was studying in Kyoto, my cousin Becky and Reverend Blake's father, Craig, were also living in Kyoto. And Reverend George had asked Becky to help him go over the prospective candidates. And I'm happy to say that Becky, upon meeting Yasuko, immediately selected Yasuko-san because of her beautiful smile and her poise, which we've all come to know and love through the years. Yasuko-san has always served as the spark in Reverend George's ministry and his long life. I remember times when Reverend George and Yasuko-san would come over to our house on New Year's, and my mom and Yasuko-san would be sitting there talking away, and George would be patiently sitting there with a small smile on his face. I think he was most happiest when he was together with Yasuko-san. So Shibata Sensei, thank you. Thank you for your many years of dedication to our Sangha and to my family too. And I bet you're hanging out with Okami-san, my Uncle Jim, Auntie Patsy, and Dennis Yoshikawa every night in Gion. Kanpai Sensei. Thank you. Namanda.
Well, Reverend Brian, those were some interesting stories. Some I've never heard. My name is Vicki Nishida, and I am from the Really Buddhist Church. It is my honor to share a few words about Reverend George Shibata. These memories are from my sister, Judy, and I, and are to the best of our recollection, so please forgive me if there are some things that are not correct. Reverend George, as he liked to be called, served the Reedley Buddhist Church for 37 years. He arrived in Reedley in December 1974, the winter after I graduated from high school. I believe he was our first English-speaking minister, so it was easy to understand his messages. He was a very soft-spoken man, and we always enjoyed it when we could get him to laugh or smile. After I went away to school and returned to the Valley, Reverend George performed my marriage ceremony in 1980. One of the kindest and most thoughtful actions he performed annually was that he would always send an anniversary card that would amazingly arrive on our anniversary date or on the day before. I don't know how he had such perfect timing, but speaking with other couples that he had married, we all shared the same experience. There were a few things that Reverend George loved. He loved his coffee, and I don't think I ever saw him drink water. He also loved his cigars in his younger days, and in the true spirit of recycling, we would use the wooden boxes that the cigars came in to make obutsudans in the 3rd and 4th grade classrooms. He would always conduct a, and I'm sorry if I don't say this correctly, Nubutsushiki service for the students to welcome their obutsudans into their homes. Lastly, he loved to golf. He had a weekly date with one of our members, and he also enjoyed playing in tournaments. One of my earliest memories of Reverend George was when there was some type of talent show or something at church, and the Nisei men thought it would be hilarious to dress up as famous women. We had Jackie Kennedy Onassis, Cher, Miss America, and others. Somehow, and I'm not quite sure how, they convinced Reverend George to dress up as Charo. And as a new minister, I'm not really sure if he said he had a choice. And I know I'm dating myself with those characters. Other memories of Reverend George include him joining our kids on the basketball court during Youth Week. They loved to see him shoot baskets and jump rope. He and Mrs. Shibata were always supportive of our children and would join us at Camp Dharma up at Camp Keola at Huntington Lake. He led Dharma services among the pine trees on the shore of the lake, where it was normally 20 degrees cooler than in the valley. On our morning walk, he would encourage everyone to look for the perfect nature putter, which was actually a stick carved or curved at the end, to be used as a golf club in the golf tournament that afternoon. He also conducted services at our annual beach outing at Avila Beach, at our Hotoke no Kodomo summer program, and he would accompany the Dharma School families to our annual snow hike. Each New Year's Day, our Sangha looked forward to comments about his beloved University of Washington football team, especially if they were in the Rose Bowl. And if they weren't in the championship, he always had an explanation of why they weren't. Our family had the pleasure of hosting Reverend Shibata and Mrs. Shibata as one of their stops on New Year's Day for many years. After retiring, they moved to Stockton in 2013, I believe. Since we spent a week in Lake Tahoe every summer, we would drop in for a visit with them on our way up, And after a couple of years, they decided to time their vacation and meet us up in Lake Tahoe for a visit and dinner. One of my favorite pictures of Reverend George was him carrying my granddaughter on one of those visits. This past October, we took a family trip with a few friends too to Japan. We planned a day trip to Takaoka, and 19 of us took the train to see the Shibatas. They lived across the street from the train station, so they met us at the station. We then proceeded to their place, dropped all of our carry-on luggage there, then went and had lunch at a nearby mall with a food court. We had a wonderful time visiting with them and took turns sitting with them. Mrs. Shibata shared with us that Reverend George was tired that day because he hadn't slept much the night before because he was so excited that we were all coming to visit. We all felt very lucky to have spent time with them on that visit. These are just a few memories that we have of Reverend George, and we will forever be grateful to him and Mrs. Shibata for their guidance, patience, and thoughtfulness. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Vicki, for those wonderful memories. One of my memories that will always be in my mind when I see Sensei is with his cigars and his quiet answers of just Next, I'd like to call on Bishop Harada to offer this morning's Dharma message.
Naman Navats, Naman Navats, Naman Navats. I would like to first extend my deepest sympathies and condolences to Mrs. Yasuko Shibata and all the members of the Shibata family on the passing of their beloved Reverend George. I would like to thank the family for allowing us to pay our deep respects to Reverend George for his many years of dedicated service to the BCA. Besides being a colleague of Reverend George as a minister in the BCA, I have an even longer connection with the Shibata family that goes back to the days when Reverend George's father and Reverend Candace's grandfather, the late Reverend Teshin Shibata, served at my home temple, the Idaho, Oregon Buddhist Temple. The late Reverend Teshin Shibata served at Idaho, Oregon when the present existing temple was built. The sacrifices of Reverend and Mrs. Shibata and their entire family to build that temple cannot be expressed enough. Reverend George spent many of his years of his youth in Ontario, Oregon, where I am from. My late uncle, John Tamino, was in YBA with Reverend George. Over the years of ministry with Reverend George in our BCA, I have had the privilege of golfing with Reverend George on numerous occasions at ministers' golf tournaments, and I can also recall his ever-present cigar that he smoked as he played. Reverend George did something as a minister that I have never done, but looking back, I wish that I had done so. As we heard from Vicki Nishida, Reverend George once mentioned to me that he sends an anniversary card every year to every couple that he married as a minister. Wow. I have never done that. But what a wonderful thing to do as a minister. I would imagine that those couples who received the anniversary cards from him every year were very touched by how he remembered them all. As we all know, Reverend George was a man of few words. His quiet demeanor was a characteristic of many in the Shibata family. With his quiet demeanor in mind, I chose for his ingo or his honorary posthumous title, from the Honganji, the following characters, Jotoku, this is Jo, it means quiet, and Toku means virtue, quiet virtue. In means ingo, or honorary title. It's also on your service program. Our culture is more of a culture of noise and talking. Turn on any TV talk show and it is constant talking, sometimes with people talking over each other, interrupting each other, and seemingly very little listening going on. In Buddhism, there is virtue in quietness, tranquility, even silence. Perhaps many of you followed the journey of the 19 Buddhist monks who walked from Texas to Washington, D.C. on a recent peace march. It was not a protest march, it was a peace march. They walked, mostly in silence, stopping along the way to greet people, to offer chants, and to give people a sense of hope for peace. Their peace march grew and grew with each day. Towards the end, there were literally thousands who came out to see them, to march with them, to feel a sense of peace from them. There was one head monk who was their spokesman, but for the most part, the rest of them marched in silence, even in the cold and through the snow. People of all backgrounds and faiths came to see them. In the deep south that is primarily Christian, Christians came to be with the monks. They felt something from their silent presence. Their actions spoke more than words. I even saw a YouTube video of a Christian minister who talked about the monks in his Sunday sermon at his church. He praised the monks for their peace march and showed a video of them walking. Of course, he related the monks' peace march to Christianity for his message, but I was so impressed by how this Christian minister was touched by the silent virtue of the monks and their message of kindness and compassion that they were imparting to the world. Maybe Reverend George Shibata's quiet nature was not just his disposition or his personality. Maybe he knew something, like those 19 monks who marched in silence. Maybe he felt that it was not necessary to say a lot of words, that words can sometimes be hollow, shallow, and insincere. Words can sometimes even be hurtful or hateful. Maybe that was one reason why Reverend George was so quiet and a man of few words. Maybe Reverend George was being his truly honest self in his quiet silence. Maybe that was his dynamic message of the Dharma to others, not speaking the Dharma so much in words, but in trying to be eloquent as a speaker, but manifesting the Dharma through presence, through being in the here and now. I once read in a book by Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Buddhist master, about how he once was asked to speak to a group of prisoners. In a large room, there were about 200 inmates, and they were all talking noisily to each other when Thich Nhat Hanh entered the room. He sat in the middle of the room and began to meditate quietly, not speaking a word. The inmates were still being noisy, some saying, "Hey, I thought this monk was going to talk to us. When is he going to start talking?" 5 minutes passed. Thich Nhat Hanh was still silent. 10 minutes passed. He was still silent. But the noise level in the room was getting softer and softer. Finally, there was total silence in the room. you could hear a pin drop. Now Thich Nhat Hanh began to speak to the prisoners. There is tremendous virtue, tremendous power in silence. Today, as I pay my deepest respects to the late Reverend George Shibata, and to honor and thank him for his many dedicated years of service to the temples that he served and to our Buddhist churches of America, I am taught the virtue of silence, the virtue of tranquility, the virtue of manifesting the Dharma not just through words, but by one's presence and being. I would like to conclude my message by sharing a quotation from the late Reverend Kendyu T. Tsuji, former bishop of our Buddhist Churches of America, titled, "Listen." Listen. Listen to the voice of the Dharma. Listen to the birds singing in the morning, the wind sighing in the boughs overhead, and the roar of the waves on the beach. Listen to the rain on the roof and the snow falling in the fields. The Dharma speaks to us through the sounds of the world, forcefully and eloquently and beautifully. It speaks of the unending change around us, the immutable truth of interdependence, and the peace in nature. Do you have the ears to hear and listen? Listen to the Nutsu in the Hondo. Listen to the noble silence of the Buddha. Namandavats, 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 namandavats.
Thank you, Bishop. We'll now have the reading of the Gobunsho, Letter on White Ashes, first in Japanese by Reverend Bridge, and followed in English by Reverend Honda.
それ人間の不詳なる相をつらつら感ずるおおよそ儚きものはこの世の始終中幻のごとくなるいちごなりさればいまだ漫才の人参の受けたりということを聞かず一生過ぎやすし今に立って誰か100年の業態を保つべきや我やさき人やさき今日とも知らず明日とも知らず遅れ先立つ人は元の雫末の梅雨よりも茂しと言えにされば明日には子がなってゆべにはひょっとなれる皆にすれに無常の風来たりぬればすなわち二つの眼たちまちに閉じ一つの息長く耐えぬれば高顔虚しく返じて通りの装いを失いぬる時は六眷属集まって嘆き悲しめども沢にその会あるべからずさてしもあるべきことなれねばとて野外に送って 弱に煙となし果てぬれば、ただ白骨の溝のこれり、哀れというもなかなか愚こなり。されば人間の儚きことは老少不女の境なれば、誰の人も早く御生の一大事を心にかけて、阿弥陀仏と深く頼み参らせて、念仏申すべきものなり。あなかしこ、あなかしこ。ナマンダ。
Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity. At first, I would like to express my deepest condolences to the Shibata family. I just wanted to share a brief memory of Reverend Shibata. He played a real strong role in my upbringing, being raised in the Central Valley at the Fowler Buddhist Church. He was a resident minister at Reedley Buddhist Temple, where my mother's family is from and grew up at. I just remember him with this, although quiet, he was always very present at a lot of our functions. And many of my YBA friends, we always still reflect on Shibata Sensei and his quiet nature, but yet he was always present at our events. So one of my funny memories of Reverend Shibata was actually whenever he would visit my grandparents, Haraguchi, in Reedley, my grandmother always made sure to prepare fresh miso from crab. And as he would eat that, he would eat it like a soup like this. And I thought as a kid, oh, how gross. If you saw miso from a crab, it kind of looks like, number 2. So it's kind of, but funny enough, just this past week, we had our Oxnard Buddhist Temple crab feed, and I had miso for the first time in a long time, and it was really good. And then I thought of Shibata Sensei right away, and I thought, oh, what a wonderful memory. And now that's something I can appreciate for future times to come. So in a time of mourning such as today, words fail to express our sadness over the loss of a loved one. But at this time, I would like to share and recite the White Ashes in English. The White Ashes was written by our 8th abbot, Monchu Renyo Shonin, and was the content of communication between Renyo and a fellow Jodo Shinshu follower, who, like all of us today, had experienced the passing of a loved one. Though often words can fail to express our sadness for the loss of a loved one, by the reading of this letter, it has brought comfort to our tradition for over 500 years and read at million Jodo Shinshu funerals to share the essence of our human existence. So at this time, may I please ask you to either bow your heads or join me in Gasho as I recite the White Ashes. In silently contemplating the transient nature of human existence, nothing is more fragile and fleeting in this world than human life. Thus we have not heard of human life lasting over 10,000 years. Life swiftly passes, and who among them can maintain their form for even 100 years? Whether I go before others or others go before me, whether it be today or whether it may be tomorrow, who is to know? Those who leave before us are as countless the fragile as drops of dew. Though in the morning we may have radiant health, in the evening we may be white ashes. When the winds of impermanence blow, our eyes are closed forever, and when the last breath leaves us, our face loses its color. Though loved ones gather and lament, everything is of no avail. The body is then sent to an open field and vanishes from the world with the smoke of cremation. leaving only the white ashes. There is nothing more real than this truth of life. The fragile nature of human existence underlies both the young and the old, and therefore we must, one and all, turn to the teachings of the Buddha and awaken to the ultimate source of life. By so understanding the meaning of death, we shall come to fully appreciate the meaning of this life, which is unrepeatable, and thus to be treasured above all else. By virtue of true compassion, let us realize the unexcelled value of our human existence, and let us live with the Nembutsu, Namu Amida Butsu, in our hearts. Please join me in Gassho. Namu Amida Butsu, Namu Amida Butsu, Namu Amida Butsu, Namu Amida Butsu.
At this time, we'd like to offer a video presentation presented by the family. So if you could just give us a few moments to prepare for that. And if I could invite the ministers from the Onaijin to please come down to watch the video. Thank you. Well, that was beautiful. It goes to show we need to take a lot of photos of ourselves in order for our own videos to be worthwhile. Very nice, though. Very nice memories. Next, I'd like to call on a number of people to offer words of appreciation. First, on behalf of Sensei's family, Reverend Candace Shibata.
Thank you. Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for your kind attendance today. And on behalf of the Shibata family, I would like to express our sincere gratitude, of course, to the Buddhist Churches of America and the Buddhist Church of Stockton. Specifically, I'd like to thank Bishop Marvin Harada for officiating today's funeral service and for his guidance and support to our family during this difficult time. Reverend Michael Endo for chairing the service and for his kind support with the details and planning and the many phone calls and emails that I sent to him trying to get everything in order. Of course, I'd like to thank all of the ministers who participated today who made this service very special. Mrs. Darlene Bagshaw and Mr. Alex Sakata for playing the organ, Mr. Charlie Bagshaw, and even playing a double role, Mr. Alex Sakata for being our audio and video assistants so we could stream today's service for those in attendance online, and especially for Auntie Yasuko in Japan. For Reverend Noritake Imada and Reverend Matt Hamasaki for being today's assistants. Thank you so much for your help as I was very busily running around today as well. And I'd like to thank May Pablo and Kay Freeman, the Buddhist Church of Stockton's ministers' assistants, for your help and support as always. Reverend Brian Nagata and Mrs. Vicky Nishida for providing beautiful words of remembrances and sharing a piece of our uncle, for the siblings too, probably a view that we didn't know of them as of Uncle George as well. Of course, to the various Oshoko representatives, retired ministers who also served as honorary pallbearers, the ushers and uketsuke receptionists, for everything that you did today for your participation in our service. Our VPs of social service, Mrs. Ruby Kato and Mrs. Sachi Yanokita, for your help in planning the service and coordinating the Otoki reception with the help of so many countless volunteers. And to all of you, of course, for your generous koden and phone calls, thoughtfulness in honoring Uncle George and for attending today's service. We are truly grateful for your kindness and support. I'd like to especially extend our sincere appreciation to the temple members of the Central California District, especially members of the Reedley Buddhist Church, who took great care of our aunt and uncle while they lived there. Thank you for welcoming them into your homes and being a part of their extended family when the distance kept us apart. And lastly, I would especially like to thank our Auntie Yasuko. Although she could not be here today, I would still like to express our family's heartfelt gratitude to Auntie Yasuko for being such a supportive partner to our Uncle George, or as she would say, Georgie. She took such great care of him throughout his life, attending to the big details like making sure he ate well, to the smallest of details like adjusting his coat or shirt so that it was just right. We truly appreciate and extend our love to Auntie Yasuko. We would like to cordially invite all of you to join us for refreshments and fellowship in the social hall after today's service. So thank you again from the bottom of our hearts for attending today and for your kind support. And be safe and please drive home safely. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to call on Mrs. Candace Hayashi to offer words of appreciation on behalf of the Buddhist Church of Stockton.
Darlene and I apologize in advance because a lot of things will be duplicated, okay? So, good afternoon. Thank you all for being here in Stockton today to honor Reverend George Eishin Shibata. I'm Candy Hayashi. I'm the current temple president, and so on behalf of the Buddhist Church of Stockton, would like to express our sincere condolences to the Shibata family and relatives and all his friends who are in attendance today. Those of us here in Stockton have come to know Reverend George as a quiet, kind, and gentle person. We were so fortunate that he and Yasuko decided to move to Stockton upon his retirement, as it gave us an opportunity to better know another member of the Shibata family and to have Reverend and Yasuko as part of our Stockton Sangha. Thank you to the BCA for sponsoring this service with our Stockton Temple. We are so grateful to have Bishop Marvin Harada and co-official own Reverend Candace Shibata conduct today's service with the assistance of Reverend Noritaka Imada and Reverend Matt Hamasaki. Thank you, Reverend Michael Endo, for serving as chairperson, to the BCA representatives for being here to Oshoko or participate in the program in other ways. Thank you to the retired BCA ministers who are serving as our honorary pallbearers today, and the BCA ministers listed on the program who are assuming responsibilities. They are Reverend Yukiko Motoyoshi, Reverend Henry Adams, Reverend Brian Nagata, Reverend Harry Bridge, and Reverend Blake Honda, among many others. Thank you to the many members of the Buddhist Church of Stockton who are assisting in visible and not so visible ways. Thank you to our organists, Darlene Bagshaw and Alex Sakata, and to Charlie Bagshaw and Alex Sakata for facilitating the live streaming of this service. Thank you to Ruby Kato for coordinating so much of this day and telling us what time to come and where to go, and to Sachi Yanokita as well. Thank you to our ushers, to our Uketsuke team, members attending to the floral and guest registries, and our many, many Otoki volunteers hard at work in the social hall overseeing the reception to follow. As they say, it takes a village. We are so appreciative of all of you being here today to join us in honoring and remembering Reverend George Eishin Shibata, who dedicated his life to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Okage-sama de.
Thank you. And now I'd like to call on Darlene Bagshaw to offer the words of appreciation on behalf of the BCA.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for coming today. It's so interesting what you learn about people after they're gone. It would have been fun to have known some of those details when he was here. So I'm Darlene Bagshaw. I'm the president-elect of the Buddhist Churches of America, along with our vice president, Bradley Menda. We are here on behalf of the BCA. I would like to extend our sincerest condolences to the Shibata family in the loss of Reverend George Shibata. Despite the beautiful readings of Renyo's letters on white ashes by Reverend Harry Bridge and Reverend Blake Honda, it is truly difficult to confront the fragility of life. Reverend Junjo Tsumura spoke on how we might fondly recall a beloved family member or friend. He spoke of how the family will remember the warmth of their touch and how friends will remember the warmth of their smile. I will always remember Reverend George Shibata's kind and compassionate nature, how he was always willing to help. He never said no. He'd say, sure, sure, and with an enthusiastic nod and his gentle smile. From the Federation of Dharma School Teachers League, we truly appreciate the family allowing Reverend George to share his life with our teachers as a longtime ministerial advisor. We have so much gratitude for him and all our ministers who keep the Dharma schools relevant and thriving. Thank you to Bishop Marvin Harada for officiating today's service, and Reverend Candace Shibata for her supportive role here at the Buddhist Church of Stockton. Also to Reverend Noritaka Imada and Reverend Matthew Hamasaki for assisting with today's service. And thank you, Reverend Michael Endo, for chairing today's service. On behalf of the BCA, we would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to all the members of the Buddhist Church of Stockton for co-sponsoring today's service and all the work behind the scenes, with so many serving as volunteers with the Otoki, our after-service refreshments and fellowship, Uketsuke, our greeters in the foyer, guest book, and please do not forget to sign for the family, ushers, organ music, live stream, photography, and floral registry. Also to all our Oshoko representatives who traveled many miles to represent all the organizations touched by Reverend George Shibata. We're grateful to all our ministers and ministers emeritus for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here today to offer condolences and share your memories. Today's service, with all the kind words, the wonderful photos, has truly been a wonderful tribute to the career, life, and long-lasting impression left upon all family and friends of the late George Eshin Shibata. Thank you all for your attendance. Namo Amida Butsu.
This morning, this will conclude this service remembrance for Reverend George Shibata. One of the common themes for Reverend Shibata today, as we've heard, was his quiet virtue, as the bishop mentioned through the ingo that we issued to Sensei. A very quiet virtue, but in this quiet virtue, he had a very, very loud voice in sharing the Dharma that he loved so much. Especially in Buddhist education, in the circle of Buddhist education. Sensei was a staunch supporter of the Dharma school throughout his life. Those of us who grew up in Sensei's through his ministry and in that generation, maybe you're aware of this very famous pamphlet that Sensei wrote back in 1974, The Buddhist Holidays. Right? He wanted to be sure that we as Jodo Shinshu Buddhists, knew the importance of the observances that we hold in our tradition. And I just wanted to close my this morning's service. It's from the section on Gotan-e, Fujimatsuri, that Sensei wrote. At the very end, he says, all of us are ondobo and ondogyo, or fellow practitioners of the Nembutsu, and we are able to share together equally the Nembutsu. To be able to share equally the gratitude of Shinran Shonin's birth on the occasion of Gotan-e or Fujimatsuri is for us indeed a blessing. And I think it is indeed a blessing for all of us who have had the honor to know Reverend Shibata, that it is a blessing to have shared this path of Sensei. And so I thank Sensei very much for his guidance and leadership and ministry. And again, I thank all of you for your attendance here today to honor Reverend Shibata. To Yasuko-san, I know you're watching in Toyama. 毎日寂しい悲しい日も続くかと思いますけれども、その時は壇の前で手を合わせてお念仏を唱えれば、また先生の笑顔と、心とまた、会うことができるんじゃないかと思います。ですから、これからもお体をお大事にしてください。またいつか富山でお会いしたいと思います。So this will conclude this morning's service. Again, I thank you all for your attendance. We will now have the final tribute, Oshoko, by the congregation. But before that, I'd just like to invite the ministers to exit the Hondo, and then we will begin with the Oshoko. So if I could ask you all to please join me in Gassho as we close the service. Thank you. Namandabutsu, 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 namandabutsu. Thank you very much.